Welcome back to the Will C Workshop, everybody. Um, don't mind the editing, it's probably a bit rough. Audio, whatever else, I haven't got all that stuff sorted out just yet. But I wanted to talk to you briefly about batteries. And I'll zoom you in here pretty quick. But actually, I'll zoom you in here right now. Give me a second. I'm back. As previously stated, I don't have a camera person or an editor or whatever else. I'm just kind of doing this as I'm inspired to do so, and I wanted to give you a show of the spread here. We've got poor camera work on point. Little lead acid battery there, 12 volt, 35 amp hour. We've got DeWalt Flex Volt 20 to 60 volt. We've got a 40 volt Ryobi, 18 volt Makita, 18 volt Ryobi, 18 volt advanced chemistry lithium Ryobi. Got a regular alkaline Energizer battery here. Got a rechargeable energy AA battery, so two AA's there. AAA battery, and this little 4 volt, along with this what is this, 12,000 milliamp hour DC 1 to 2.1 amp at 5 volt output. This little lantern from Goal Zero, phone, that kind of stuff. These are examples of different batteries. And when I got started into solar, batteries were like, okay, now what? And voltage and all this other stuff. So I just wanted to go over that real quick. Hit a few high points, realize that my beard is especially rugged today. And I'm going to put you guys in the tripod so I can use both hands and give you a little better scope of it. So give me a second. All right, so again, just wanted to give you guys kind of a battery basics, a primer, if you will. I love the way that electronics have moved forward. From this big old heavy bugger that's only a 35 amp hour, actually pretty small compared to the size of the battery that's in the truck or what have you. But then to have this, which I run my chainsaw and my hammer drill off of, and I've got another one. Have this, which I run the big blower and the string trimmer, as well as the rototiller attachment that goes on the string trimmer. This is just a handy little Sawzall drill combo that was actually donated to the co-op a while back. Old school batteries, which you can get for cheap for the lithium ion ones, and still old school because they've got two other generations of technology ahead. But what does all this mean? Like, you look at this and you're like, oh, okay, so this is 20 to 60 volt, this is 40, this being DeWalt 20 to 60, Ryobi 40 volt, 18 volt, cool, but I can't plug that into my Ryobi because the things are different, right? And then these cute little 4 volt Ryobi rechargeables, which are super useful for the tools that they came out with, but not very common. And the question remains is, like, how do I use this energy? So at the very beginning of things, I had to figure out the words that people were using as far as batteries go. Volts is the most common one, and as I said, this is a 4 volt battery for Ryobi. This is a 1.5. This is also a 1.5. This is a AAA, but smaller capacity. And then amp hours is the other thing that they often put out here. And amp hours is simply how much power is stored up in this. This is a 9 amp hour DeWalt. and this is a 2.6 amp hour Ryobi. The voltages are different, but generally speaking, you can get on a 20 volt machine, which I think the hammer drill is a 20 volt. You can get a up to 9 amp hour usage out of it. And then there's another element in it, which, so like this is, let's just, and luckily they have these specs on them. I don't know if you can read it from there, but this is a 1.5 amp hour, but also 28 watt hour, 18 volt lithium ion. So what's super cool about volts, amps, watts is the equation of voltage times amperage will give you your watts, especially in if you're looking for watt hours. So if you have a 1.5 amp hour battery times 18 volts, you're going to get 28 watt hour. Now, watt is the reason to figure watts versus amps versus whatever. So again, basics, voltage is the kind of power that you're running off of. This is a 4 volt direct current battery. This is a 1.5 volt direct current battery. And the difference between these two is a lot. This one is not rechargeable. It'll explode if you try to recharge it. But this AA is rechargeable. But you can't plug this 1.5 volt DC into what you would plug this into. So size change and the rest of that is a big indicator there. You also have, and we're just dealing in direct current with these batteries. When you're dealing with batteries, almost always, unless you're inverting it, you're dealing with a direct current. And then when you know that you have, for instance, this is a 20 to 60 volt flex volt battery, so it can actually run anywhere between 60 volts and 20 volts. If it's running 60 volts, it's going to run that amperage out quicker, because what your machine's actually using is watts. And the watts is basically, as a for instance, the, what do I have here? Just as an example, I have, this is one of the Goal Zero lanterns. I've got others, but off of this, we're running 5 volt DC. This is a regular USB, and actually only the other lanterns that plug into this, they only run at 5 watts. So 5 watts is super small when you consider that something like, what else do I have here? Well, let's see this. What's this charge at? I don't have the wattage on this. What's an example? I have a heater that is a radiant heater, and it actually runs at 1500 watts. So it uses up the energy. If I was to run it off of this, which I can't, I don't have an inverter that big, but it uses up the energy from this battery a lot quicker. So watts is how much the tool uses, and they'll usually put that right on the label. Sometimes they'll put amps, and you have to do the math yourself based on your battery and inverter and whatever else setup you got. But in super basic battery terms, this 9 amp hour battery can work between the range of 20 and 60 volts, and it will give in that range about 180 watt hours based on that range. So you're using that 20 times the 9. But then if you look at, okay, wait, I'm going to go down to 6, I'm going to go down to 60, then you're still looking at the same capacity from this battery. So your wattage isn't going to be much different, even though your amperage or your runtime is going to be a little bit different. So amperage is runtime, wattage is the power the tool is using, and voltage is the kind of power the tool is using. Because as we talked about, I can't run a hammer drill or electric chainsaw off of this battery. the wattage is not sufficient. The connections are not sufficient, and that was one of the things I was running into um, with the battery brands. Is you basically have to dedicate to one tool brand, um, unless, and that's where the next bit comes in, you can transfer power between the two. So now I have a setup currently that allows me to transfer power from this battery, or stay this battery. Okay, I know I'm leaning this way because I got my I can't see this part of the camera. Whatever. Hopefully it all works. Finding my realm. Anyways, um, I can transfer power from this battery to this battery, and this battery to this battery, and either of these two batteries to any of these, and so on, through, and even this lead acid one, which is more difficult to lift up, through an inverter setup, and then plug it back into the charger. Now there's DC to DC charging and all sorts of other cool stuff like that, but I just wanted to focus on the basics for this video and to kind of keep the time down. Please do provide any questions or feedback that you've got. I'm trying to make these videos educational. As I mentioned on the first one, I'm very inspired by Professor Hobotech. Great channel for solar and everything else. I've been educating myself a lot about that. But even still, those were like way beyond basic. They're way beyond like the primer stuff. And for those of us just starting out, like, could I use this to run my solar setup and even my camper? Yeah, actually, if I have the right tool for it. I don't currently, but with this one, and I have another Ryobi 40 volt that's a 4 amp hour, I actually can run my camper and other electronic stuff off of it up to a certain wattage, which is where the inverter comes in, and for a certain amount of time, which is where the size of the battery comes in, which is really useful because it's a lot easier to get this kind of battery or this kind of battery, especially now that the chemistries in them have changed. Now they're just selling the other ones off like hotcakes. It's super inexpensive, and it's a lot easier to pack around these kind of batteries than these big old lead acid ones. And the crazy thing is, for this battery, which I can hold in my hand and put into a bag and super simple, versus this big old hefty cumbersome lead acid one, the wattage difference between the two is not that much. Like, how much power I can draw from it is not that much. The little lead acid one I've got here is a 420 watt hour, and this is 180. So this recharge twice is just about that. Or with the Ryobis, what is it, 4? So the 4 amp hour would be it would be, come on, brain. All right, well, let's just go off of this one. This is a 95 watt hour. And then a 4 amp hour would be, at 40, it would be 160. So I have plenty of wattage here to work with, but does it work with the tool and the setup and everything else? And so that's where it gets a little complex. But hopefully this has laid the groundwork that this is a 20 to 8 or to 60 volt battery. This is an 18 volt. Obviously, based on the tops of them, they don't connect to the same tools. But if I have an inverter and a charger, I can actually transfer the power between the two. So that's the kind of stuff I'm learning. I'm going to do another video maybe later today, but I may not upload it directly, about cool ways to transfer power between these different things when you have a lot of these different batteries. The other thing that I wanted to real quick touch on, and it's crazy, and I've been finding this out as I go into this stuff, is most of these super expensive lithium whatever battery packs that are like is bigger, jeez, And this bugger right here was heavy. They build them off of these AA battery sizes. So this battery technology is driving the other technology that is powering campers, solar generators. We'll get into some of these other things, and all of this is part of that eightfold power project that I'm talking about, where for the Sweet Creek Co-op, we're actually innovating some of these different solutions for our members, and we're putting all these different things together. But it was so crazy to me that they build their most advanced battery tech off of a bunch of these little batteries put into this case, like this big lead acid, and then they sell that with all the wiring and everything else to make it so that you can just plug and play with it. So all these are connected to each other, and but it was crazy to me that this technology, and I literally have over here, I've got a coffee container of rechargeable batteries. That if I hook those up in series or parallel, which is a whole nother conversation, I could actually build from these, from inexpensive rechargeable batteries, I could build a battery bank for solar or backup power or inverter, you know, refrigerator, CPAP, like all these other things. Blew my mind. Blew my mind that the as advanced as all this technology is in the big units and the $1,000 battery units, they're using these AA batteries. It's the craziest thing. But that's where the technology is at. That technology is easily producible. Tesla and some other people are doing like solid state and whatever else, but don't want to get too much on a tangent. I think I ran a little bit long anyways. Hopefully this was fun and informative for you. If you have questions or feedback on ways to make this better, please let me know. And hope to see you in the next video. Namaste and blessings all. We'll see you there. Get it? We'll see workshop.